the house stood even more imposing than before, its silence spreading into every dark corner. Things have not always been as they are now. Once, the days unfolded with a distinct cadence, a steady whisper of conversation, the gentle echo of laughter, and the subtle clinking of glasses during shared meals. Yet those sounds had long since faded away, supplanted by the creaking of the floorboards and the gentle hum of the refrigerator, the sole reminders that I was not entirely alone. 3 years had quietly passed since my husband left this world. 3 long years traversing the terrain of existence in his absence, discovering how to breathe in a world where every shadow resonated with his memory. I thought I was making progress, finding methods to fill the emptiness with routines and small distractions. In moments akin to this, as I found myself in the kitchen, staring blankly at a sink overflowing with dishes, the profound heaviness of solitude hit me with a force that left me gasping for air. The unexpected arrival of Nathan caught everyone off guard. He approached the door on a dreary afternoon, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a look of remorse illuminating his face. He had remarked, "I apologize for the unexpected visit." His tone radiated warmth and a sense of familiarity. I just needed a place to express my ideas. I did not ask for any details. The look he gave, a mixture of exhaustion and delicate vulnerability, communicated all I needed to grasp. He had always carried a gentle spirit, the sort of young man who shouldered the weight of the world with a serene elegance. Seeing him in such a fragile moment stirred a profound feeling inside me. "Certainly," I replied, moving aside to invite him in. "Feel free to take your time." 3 weeks had quietly passed since that time. In that moment, as I stood in the kitchen, my hands reaching for a jar of spices resting on the top shelf of the pantry, my mind wandered to him, more than I had planned. With Nathan's presence, the house seemed to lose some of its desolation. His presence filled the emptiness I had not realized existed. The sound of his footsteps moving through the guest room, the gentle tone of his voice during phone conversations, and the nonchalant way he set his coffee mug on the counter all created a striking image of his presence. It infused life into a place that had remained stagnant for ages. However, it also brought forth a number of challenges. Nathan had evolved from the clumsy adolescent I once recognized. He had grown into a man, broad-shouldered and confident, with a natural smile that could put even the most guarded individuals at ease. In my efforts to remember the years that separated us and the roles we were destined to play, there were brief moments when I became entranced by the way his laughter brightened the atmosphere or how his eyes softened with warmth when he spoke to me. I recognized the reality. I sought a deeper understanding. As my fingers grazed the jar, an unsettling presence hovered just behind me. He stood there, radiating a comforting presence, the gentle scent of cedar blending with a refreshing crispness that surrounded me. I remained motionless, my hand hovering just above the jar, my breath caught in my throat for a fleeting moment. "Let me help," Nathan whispered, his tone soft and personal, sending a thrill coursing through me. Before I could speak, his hand brushed gently against my waist as he leaned past me, his fingers deftly reaching for the jar. The connection was fleeting, transient, yet it sparked a warmth that lingered long after he had withdrawn. He acknowledged with a nod. His voice softened as he set the jar down on the counter. I turned to face him, my heart pounding in my chest. "Thank you," I persevered, even as my voice quivered. Nathan's eyes met mine, his expression conveying a vulnerability that felt just out of reach. "Are you all right?" he asked, a faint furrow appearing on his brow. "Fine," I responded quickly, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear, feeling only a touch of fatigue. He nodded, but the look on his face suggested that uncertainty still lingered within him. "You ought to take a break," he suggested, his voice now wrapped in a tender warmth. "You've been wearing yourself thin." "I am fine," I emphasized, with a stronger sense of assurance this time. Nathan hesitated, his gaze locking onto mine for a brief instant before he pulled away. "If you say so," he replied, his voice light, but a trace of concern hung in the air. As he left the kitchen, I exhaled a shaky breath, my fingers gripping the edge of the counter for support. I comforted myself with the thought that it bore no weight, just a momentary occurrence, a straightforward gesture of goodwill, nothing more than that. As I lingered by the counter, my gaze fixed on the jar, the memory of his hand gliding over my waist haunted me, igniting a warmth within my skin that felt almost electric beneath his touch. For the first time, I found myself pondering the notion that I could have been wrong. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet, the unsettling feeling from earlier persisted, wrapping around me like a heavy cloak. The brief moment in the pantry lingered in my mind all afternoon, each detail sharper than it had any right to be. The warmth of Nathan's presence lingered, the fleeting touch of his hand against mine, and most unsettling of all, the way it continued to haunt my thoughts long after he had left. I comforted myself with the thought that I was being ridiculous, dissecting something that truly mattered little. Yet, as his voice filled the living room, wrapping the space in warmth and comfort, I felt that familiar flutter in my chest, unexpected and unavoidable. "Hello," Nathan announced as he stepped into the kitchen. He leaned against the doorway, hands tucked into his pockets, hair slightly disheveled, as if he had just emerged from a peaceful sleep. "What are your thoughts on me taking the lead for dinner this evening?" "What about you?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. He offered a grin, his youthful allure shining through his expression, making it almost irresistible to smile back. "Refrain from donning that doubtful look. I promise you, I'm not as terrible as you may believe." I hesitated, the weight of the day's stress still pressing down on me, but the earnest light in his eyes, so genuine and inviting, made it impossible to refuse. "Very well," I proclaimed, folding my arms with a sense of finality. "Now, show me what you have to offer." Nathan moved through the kitchen with an unexpected elegance, gathering ingredients from the fridge and cabinets as though he had been familiar with this space for years. "I was taken aback by your impressive skills in the kitchen," I said, leaning against the counter as I watched him work. "There's a great deal you still don't know about me," he replied, glancing at me from the corner of his eye. His voice danced with a playful lilt, while the intensity of his gaze ensnared mine, stirring a flutter of unease in my stomach. "Could you clarify what you mean?" I asked, striving to keep my tone upbeat. Nathan shrugged, a faint smile tugging at the edges of his lips. With a dramatic flourish, he proclaimed his prowess in crafting a delightful chicken Alfredo, brandishing a jar of cream as evidence. A soft laugh slipped from my lips, cutting through the heaviness that had taken residence in my heart all day long. I will embrace it as reality once I truly experience it. The kitchen was filled with the warm, inviting aroma of garlic and cream as Nathan worked diligently, the sounds of clanging pans and utensils creating a harmonious backdrop that resonated with a surprising sense of calm. Leaning against the counter, I felt a wave of relaxation envelop me, the tension in my shoulders melting away with every sip of wine. "Would you be so kind as to hand me the Parmesan?" Nathan motioned toward the fridge, his head tilting slightly as he posed the question. "Certainly," I responded, setting my glass down softly on the table. As I handed him the cheese, our fingers brushed lightly, and for a brief moment, everything around us faded away. It was a fleeting whisper of a moment, so transient. The warmth of his touch sparked a shiver within me that I could not ignore. Nathan's gaze flickered to mine, his expression an enigmatic facade. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice now a soft, almost fragile whisper. "Of course," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. Though ephemeral, the instant carved itself into the fabric of memory. A gentle echo of unspoken ideas lingers softly in the air around us. As we took our seats at the table, the sky had transformed into a deep darkness, and the gentle chirping of crickets filled the quiet of the evening. Nathan had meticulously set the table, placing a candle at the center, suggesting that this was more than just an ordinary dinner. "The aroma wafting through the air is nothing short of delightful," I observed, my eyes fixed on the plate of rich, creamy pasta laid out before me. "Enjoy it thoroughly before sharing your admiration?" Nathan remarked, a mischievous grin flickering at the corners of his mouth. As I bit into it, the flavors surrounded me, indulgent and luxurious, eliciting a gentle hum of satisfaction from my lips. "Indeed, you have emerged victorious. This is genuinely extraordinary." "See, I told you I wasn't half bad," he remarked, a broad grin spreading across his face. We enjoyed our meal in a serene quietude, the soft glow of candlelight casting delicate shadows around us. As the meal unfolded, an unsettling sensation persisted within me. Nathan's gaze was locked onto me, steady and intent. What might it be? I finally asked, setting my fork down softly on the table. Nathan halted, a thoughtful expression settling upon his features. "I'm truly thankful you let me stay," he whispered, his tone now more gentle. "It has been a while since I felt the warmth of having a space that truly belongs to me." His words hit with an unexpected intensity, and I felt a lump rising in my throat. "You'll always discover a place to belong here," I whispered softly. Nathan's gaze softened, and for a fleeting moment, the air around us shimmered with tension, the weight of everything left unsaid wrapping around us like a heavy cloak. "I genuinely meant it," I added, my voice trembling just a bit. "I know," he said, his gaze steady and unyielding. The stillness hung in the air, thick and oppressive. As I wrestled with the intensity of his stare, every second seemed to elongate into infinity. Just as I was on the verge of speaking again, Nathan leaned back in his chair, the tension easing as he took hold of his wineglass. "I appreciate your trust in me for dinner," he remarked playfully, a teasing lilt dancing in his voice. "Whenever you require," I replied, controlling a subtle smile. As we cleared the table and exchanged our goodnights, an undeniable, subtle energy lingered in the air, a presence that intrigued and unsettled me, leaving me uncertain about how to confront it. The morning sunlight poured over the yard, a warm glow that suggested the splendor the day had in store. On the porch, I cradled a cup of coffee, my eyes wandering over the garden that had fallen victim to a chaotic tangle of weeds. It was one of those undertakings I had vowed to explore eventually, yet the thought of facing it alone always felt overwhelming. Nathan's voice cut through my thoughts, noting that it appeared to demand some attention. I turned my gaze to see him stepping onto the porch, his bare feet touching the cool surface, a steaming mug of coffee held gently in his hands. His hair was a delightful mess from sleep, and the humid air made his t-shirt cling softly to his chest. "More than a few," I responded with a subtle smile. "Years have passed." "Well," he remarked, leaning against the railing, "today appears to be an opportune moment to take action." I arched an eyebrow. "Would you be willing to lend a hand with the yard work?" "Why not indeed?" he inquired, his smile effortless and youthful. "It will provide us with an engaging activity." "Indeed, a breath of fresh air would be quite welcome." I paused, casting a wary look at the tangled chaos behind me. "The path ahead is fraught with challenges." "I'm tougher than I look," he teased, a glimmer of mischief dancing in his eyes. I found myself more concerned about the implications than the challenge itself, though I kept that thought to myself. I nodded and placed my coffee cup gently on the table. "Very well, let us examine what you have to offer." We began our task by addressing the weeds, extracting the invasive tendrils that had infiltrated every nook of the garden. The task was laborious and grimy, yet Nathan approached it with fervor, his laughter echoing through the surroundings each time he dislodged a particularly obstinate root. "You weren't joking about this being a disaster," he remarked, dabbing the sweat from his forehead. "I did warn you," I said, a grin spreading across my face. The sun ascended in the sky, and by the time mid-morning arrived, we found ourselves cloaked in a layer of dirt and sweat. Yet, as the yard gradually transformed, a profound sense of achievement washed over me. Nathan knelt beside me, meticulously extracting the final weeds from the flower bed. "What comes next?" he inquired, casting a glance in my direction. "We plant," I remarked with a nod toward the modest collection of flowers and shrubs I had acquired months prior, yet had never summoned the energy to utilize. Nathan's smile grew broader. "At last, we arrive at the exhilarating segment." As we excavated the earth and nestled the new plants into their homes, the atmosphere surrounding us felt buoyant, our dialogue flowing effortlessly and without reservation. Nathan shared tales of his experiences in the bustling city. The individuals he had encountered, the position he had abandoned, and the motivations that had left him feeling adrift prior to his arrival here. "It seems you've endured quite a journey," I murmured gently, as I nestled a handful of earth around the base of a daisy. He shrugged, a contemplative look crossing his face. "I suppose. Yet, arriving here has proven beneficial. Your assistance has been invaluable. As I gazed at him, I was struck by the sincerity that echoed in his voice. I have not yet achieved anything. You've achieved far more than you realize, he said, his gaze steady. The intensity of his words left me momentarily at a loss, prompting me to quickly shift my focus back to my responsibilities, unsure of how to respond. The yard, once unremarkable, now stood in a state of complete transformation. The once chaotic tangle transformed into neat rows of blossoms, their vibrant hues strikingly contrasting with the rich, earthy backdrop. It looks absolutely incredible, Nathan remarked, stepping back to fully appreciate our creation. Indeed, I agreed, a surge of pride swelling inside me. Nathan cast a sidelong glance in my direction, a faint smile playing at the edges of his lips. Can you perceive it? We make a rather impressive pair, I chuckled softly, tucking a stray lock of hair behind my ear. Resist the temptation to become too comfortable too quickly. The back garden patiently awaits your care and creativity. I'm ready when you are, he said, his tone teasing, but the warmth in his gaze remained, lingering in the air. Later, we found ourselves on the porch, enjoying lemonade while the cool breeze wrapped around us like a soft hug. The soreness in my muscles served as a badge of honor, a gratifying reminder of the dedication invested in something profoundly significant. Nathan lounged in his chair, his long legs stretched out in front of him. I needed this, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. What is this, arduous labor? I asked, a smile lighting up my face. He released a gentle chuckle, shaking his head in astonishment. No, this one, present in this moment, exchanging experiences with you. The authentic warmth in his voice caught me off guard, and I felt a wave of color flooding my cheeks. Thank you for being here, I whispered, my hold on the glass tightening. Nathan's gaze locked onto mine for an instant, his expression shrouded in mystery. He finally confessed that he shares the same sentiment. The stillness surrounded us, harmonizing with the delicate hum of cicadas and the tender rustle of leaves dancing in the breeze. Nevertheless, it was not lacking in solace. The silence wrapped around you, creating a deep bond with another spirit that went beyond the necessity of speech. As I reclined in bed that night, my mind wandered to the day we had shared, the effortless chuckle. His hand lingered just a moment too long as he passed me the trowel. His voice carried a warmth that enveloped the moment as he expressed his gladness to be present. I reassured myself that it was insignificant, an organic intimacy that blossomed through our collaboration. Yet, beneath the surface I was aware of the truth. A subtle change was unfolding between us and I found myself questioning how much longer I could maintain the facade of indifference. The evening air was thick with the scent of moist soil and newly planted blooms as I made my way onto the porch. The yard appeared stunning in the waning light, yet it was a beauty that tugged at your heartstrings, evoking memories of all that had been absent for far too long. I settled onto the swing, draping a blanket across my lap while cradling the glass of wine I had poured following dinner. The night unfolded in serene silence, punctuated only by the delicate chirping of crickets and the soft whisper of leaves dancing in the gentle breeze. I allowed the silence to envelop me, yearning for it to calm the tumultuous thoughts that had been racing through my mind throughout the day. Yet, as the screen door creaked open behind me, a tightness gripped my chest and the well-known flutter of anticipation began to awaken inside me. Nathan emerged onto the porch, a beer cradled in his hand, his hair still glistening from a recent shower. He paused briefly, contemplating his next move, before stepping onto the porch and settling beside me on the swing. Would it be too much to ask if you don't mind? He asked, his voice soft. No. I replied too quickly. I have no objections. He offered a faint smile, reclining and extending his long legs before him. For a moment, we lingered in silence, the swing gently rocking beneath us, the gentle creak of the chains mingled with the whispers of the night. You've been quiet tonight, Nathan finally remarked, shattering the stillness. I paused, my fingers gripping my glass a little tighter. Just pondering, I replied. What is the topic? I let out a quiet laugh, gently shaking my head. All things. The stillness surrounded us. I discovered that I was struggling to articulate my thoughts. Nathan's gaze locked onto mine, steady and piercing. "Feel free to share your thoughts with me. I'm here to listen to whatever's on your mind." His words, straightforward yet sincere, resonated profoundly within me. I looked down at my wine, gently swirling the liquid within the glass. "It isn't quite so simple," I whispered. "What's stopping us?" he asked, his voice soft yet insistent. "Some matters are best kept in silence," I replied, my voice trembling. Nathan paused, leaning in with his elbows on his knees, his eyes locked onto the yard. "I find that hard to accept." At long last, he found his voice. I faced him, surprised by the conviction in his voice. "Could you clarify what you mean? The fears we hesitate to articulate are frequently the very expressions we need to share." He responded, his gaze fixed on the garden. The weight of his words wrapped around me, tightening my throat. What if speaking them changes the entire trajectory of existence? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. At that instant, Nathan turned to me, his eyes searching the very core of my being. "It may very well be destined to happen." The silence surrounding us thickened, growing more oppressive, until it felt almost unbearable. I set my glass down on the small table next to me, my hands trembling just a bit. A sense of dread has taken hold of me. At long last, I let it out, the words pouring out with an unstoppable force. "Ever since your father left this world, I have been consumed by a deep-seated fear of everything, the loneliness, the uncertainty of what lies ahead, and the daunting idea of feeling again." Nathan's expression softened as he reached out, his hand coming to rest gently on mine. "There's no need to be afraid," he whispered softly. "Not in my presence." His touch, his words, they peeled back layers of my soul, revealing depths I had worked tirelessly to conceal. "We will navigate this journey side by side." I gazed at him then, really gazed at him, and perceived the quiet strength in his eyes, the steadfastness that had consistently enveloped me in a sense of security. Before I had the chance to think twice, I leaned into him, my head settling comfortably against his shoulder. Nathan replied instantly, wrapping his arms around me, pulling me closer. We held on to that embrace for what seemed like forever, the swings gently rocking beneath us, the night wrapping around us like a warm blanket. "Thank you," I finally murmured, my voice scarcely piercing the silence. "For what?" Nathan inquired, his voice barely above a whisper. In response to their presence, I spoke, the tightness in my throat betraying my emotions. In a moment of quiet reassurance, Nathan pressed a gentle kiss to the crown of my head, his lips lingering for a heartbeat longer, a testament to his unwavering support. "I will always stand by you," he whispered softly. His words broke something profound inside me, and I felt the tears flow, powerful and relentless. I held him close, my fingers woven into the material of his shirt as my body trembled with each sob. Nathan wrapped me in his embrace, his arms steady and strong, his voice a soothing comfort as he murmured soft reassurances. As the tears started to dissipate, I reclined slightly, our gazes intertwining in a shared moment of comprehension. The moonlight enveloped his face in a soft radiance, casting intricate shadows that played upon his features, and for a fleeting moment, I found myself breathless. "Nathan," I began, yet the words eluded me, ensnared in the stillness. "It's all right," he murmured, his hand gently brushing away a tear from my cheek. Though silence beckoned, I felt an undeniable urge to express myself. A deep urge surged within me to lay bare everything, to reveal the feelings I had long concealed, even from myself. I leaned in closer, my forehead gently touching his. The intimacy was overwhelming, his warmth enveloping me, anchoring me in a manner I hadn't experienced in years. For the first time in ages, I permitted myself to consider the idea that maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to face everything alone. The tempest arrived shortly after the clock struck 12, the steady drumming of rain on the glass stirring me from a restless sleep. I paused, listening to the low rumble of thunder in the distance, as brief flashes of lightning cast sharp shadows across the room. The storm carried an unsettling quality, a palpable tension, as if it held the weight of everything I had been trying to ignore. As I emerged from the depths of sleep, I wrapped myself in my robe and made my way down the staircase. The house wrapped around me in a disquieting hush, the storm raging outside amplifying the tension simmering inside. As I stepped into the kitchen, a shroud of darkness descended upon me with the sudden failure of the power. The sudden descent into darkness disoriented me, the previously soothing hum of the refrigerator now consumed by an eerie silence. My hands trembled as I reached for the drawer that contained the flashlight, groping in the darkness. "Nora?" Nathan's voice pierced the silence, jolting me as I pivoted to see him standing in the doorway, his figure softly illuminated by the storm's muted glow. "It's simply the Force," I exclaimed quickly, my voice trembling. "I had that impression," he replied, stepping closer. "Are you okay?" I maintained my stance, yet the tremor in my voice betrayed my reality. Nathan drew near, his demeanor steady and comforting. "Are you certain?" he asked, his tone softening. I nodded, yet a sense of uncertainty clung to me, making me question whether I was trying to persuade him or merely myself. He stumbled upon the flashlight before I could, its beam cutting through the thick, surrounding darkness. He extended it toward me, saying, "Here." His fingers brushed against mine, and even in the soft light, the concern in his eyes was clear. "Thank you," I whispered, taking hold of the flashlight and aiming its light toward the pantry. Nathan stood motionless, his gaze locked onto mine. After a moment of silence, he observed, "You appear to be on edge." "It's merely the storm," I responded, diverting my attention to the quest for candles. "It goes beyond that," he murmured gently. I turned my back to him, my chest tightening at the quiet conviction in his voice. "Nathan, if you would be so kind?" I pleaded, my voice barely lifting above a murmur. "Could you clarify that, please?" he asked, his voice soft but resolute. I turned to face him, the flashlight casting a soft light in the space that separated us. "What if it's meant to be challenging?" he whispered gently. "What if that is the core of everything?" The air around us felt thick, charged with an indescribable energy that commanded our focus. Nathan moved forward, his gaze steady, his voice low. "Speak to me, Nora," he whispered softly. "I would love to hear your insights." I felt compelled to voice my disagreement, my throat tightening as I spoke. "But why does it feel so appropriate?" he challenged, his voice gentle yet firm. I shook my head, tears welling up in my eyes. "It shouldn't unfold like this, please don't," he interrupted, his voice a blend of gentleness and command. "Let us not construct obstacles that we both recognize as nothing more than facades." The sincerity in his words struck me deeply, and I felt the first tears begin to flow, powerful and relentless. Fear gripped me, I admitted, my voice quivering. Nathan closed the distance that had hung in the air between us, his hand lifting to softly cup my cheek. "So am I," he murmured, his voice a soft, gentle whisper. "However, we must not ignore this situation." His touch was unwavering and reassuring, and I found myself leaning into him, even as the tumult of voices in my mind urged me to pull away. His kiss was not sudden or rushed, it unfolded slowly and deliberately, as though he were granting me every chance to retreat. Still, I held back, unable to act in any other way. The warmth of his lips against mine unraveled every thread of restraint I had clung to with fervent determination. My hands naturally reached for his shoulders, gripping him tightly as if he were the only thing keeping me from breaking apart. Nathan's arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer as the chaos of the outside world slipped into oblivion. The storm, the darkness, the weights that had held me captive for so long dissipated. In that instant, it was just him, just us, and a pressing, deep yearning to feel something real. As we finally parted, our breaths mingling in the small space that remained, I felt the warmth of tears streaming down my cheeks. "Nora," Nathan whispered softly, his thumb brushing away a tear with tender care. His words, his touch, and the calm certainty in his voice combined to create a profound sense of belief within me. For the first time I fully leaned into him, surrendering to the storm outside as I found a fragile, fleeting peace in his arms. The dawn broke gently, the echoes of the storm leaving a serene stillness enveloping the home. I stirred in bed, the soft touch of sunlight brushing against my face, but it wasn't the light that awakened me, it was the weight in my chest, a complex mix of feelings too tangled to express. I slowly emerged from my slumber, wrapping myself in the warmth of the blanket while my eyes wandered to the window. The view outside seemed refreshed, the rain washing away the traces of the past days, while inside the room, the air was thick with unspoken truths and overwhelming questions that hung in the aftermath of the night. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hall, each step measured and purposeful, causing my heart to race against my will. "Nora?" Nathan's voice carried a gentle hesitance, as if he questioned his place in this moment. I glanced over to find him framed in the doorway, his hair a bit disheveled, his expression a blend of caution and warmth. He held 2 mugs of coffee, steam rising softly, twisting and curling into the crisp morning air. "Morning," he said, his voice gentle and quiet. "Morning," I replied, my voice a soft murmur, hardly disturbing the tranquility. Nathan moved through the room, setting one of the mugs down on the nightstand beside me. He held back from taking a seat, maintaining a respectful distance, as though granting me the autonomy to decide how the next chapter would unfold. For a fleeting instant, silence wrapped around us like a soft blanket. The silence hung in the air, charged with an energy that was anything but uncomfortable, each unvoiced thought hovering like a question waiting to be explored. "I apologize for disturbing your rest." Nathan finally shattered the silence, his voice deliberate. "It's all right," I responded, holding the mug gently in my hands. The warmth wrapped around my fingers, grounding me in a way I longed for deeply. Nathan hesitated, his gaze flickering to connect with mine. "How are you doing today?" The question was simple, but the weight it bore was anything but trivial. I relished a sip of coffee, its robust flavor anchoring me as I searched for insight. Finally, I admitted it, I have no idea. I experience everything, all at once. Nathan nodded, his expression thoughtful, reflecting my own feelings. The authenticity in his voice, the delicate vulnerability mirrored in his eyes, broke something inside me, and I felt the tears starting to swell again. "I'm not sure what comes next," I admitted, my voice trembling with doubt. "We don't need to solve everything right now," Nathan said gently. He edged nearer, lowering himself to align his eyes with mine. "We shall advance gradually, together in our shared path." His words, simple yet steadfast, wrapped around me like a comforting embrace. I nodded slowly, my voice escaping me, as Nathan reached out, softly enveloping my hand where it rested on the mug. His touch radiated warmth, a steady presence that momentarily calmed the storm raging inside me. Later that morning, we made our way back to the garden. The air held a refreshing crispness, the ground retained a lingering moisture from the recent storm, and the flowers we had planted just days before seemed to radiate with newfound brightness and vibrancy. Nathan knelt beside a flower bed, carefully extracting a few stray weeds while I stood a few feet away, watching him intently. A smile began to form on my lips, the weight in my chest easing just a bit. "You're going to spoil me," I teased, my voice a soft murmur. "Maybe you are worthy of a little indulgence." His response carried a buoyancy that masked the genuine depth of his words, leaving me momentarily breathless. I knelt beside him, my fingers brushing against the damp soil as I worked in tandem with him. For a moment, language slipped through our fingers, as the quiet was wrapped in the harmonious embrace of the garden, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant melody of birds, and the rhythmic pulse of our toil. Yet this silence held no significance. It was neither tense nor unpleasant. The atmosphere was tranquil, seamless, a silence that echoed with a mutual comprehension. As we finished, we remained on the porch, our hands dirty, our faces etched with the remnants of the earth. Nathan settled into his chair, his eyelids gently closing as he tilted his face toward the sun's warm embrace. "You look happy," I remarked, the words slipping out before I could catch them. Nathan's eyes slowly opened, and he shifted to lock eyes with me. "I am," he stated plainly. The sincerity in his voice and the calmness in his expression stirred a deep ache in my chest. With a gentle tone, he expressed his certainty about his desires, affirming that they are indeed worth the struggle. The weight of his words wrapped around me, tightening my throat. Nathan, there's no need for you to say anything just now, he murmured gently. Just promise me you'll take a moment to think about this, to think about us. I looked at him, my heart a whirlwind of fear, hope, and the myriad emotions that lingered in that fragile space in between. For the first time, I permitted myself to consider the idea that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't out of reach. As we remained in each other's company, the sun enveloping us in its soft embrace and the lively garden thriving around us, an emotion I had long buried began to awaken within me. A vibrant energy surged within me, and in that instant it was more than enough.